Well, good afternoon. As promised, we are saving a truly transformational, life-changing, orbit reorganizing bit of information for you toward the end of the conference. Our goal here today is that when you go back into the world after the camp is finished, you feel 1,000 times more prepared to do two things. One, meet the needs of your administrator, which I know you're like, I didn't come to the meeting for that, but you'll see how you can meet the needs of your administrator, thereby promoting an environment where your administrator can meet your needs. We're going to give you some thoughts today into the insights as to what your administrator is thinking about. And again, insights that you should be thinking about as you're working to try and crack the code or solve the equation of this enigma wrapped in a mystery called Administratorus Sapius. I don't know, that's probably the Latin name for it, but your administrator. So first I'd like to introduce our folks that we've got here today. Real quickly, assuming we can play nicely with the slide. Come on. Booyah, look at that. I'm Tim Linley. I'm the Executive Director of Visual and Performing Arts for the Dallas Independent School District. To give you just a little bit of information about Dallas, and one of the things I think is great about today's session is you're going to get two very different kind of situations that are both classically urban. So Dallas is a large city. We have 1.2 million people that live in Dallas proper. We have 160,000 students that we serve in Dallas ISD. We have 28 high schools, we have 46 middle schools, and about 150 elementary schools. Our office oversees 900 teachers throughout the district who are visual and performing arts certified teachers. Our office has 9 people that work in it. So there's myself, I have 4 content directors, director of dance and theater, director of instrumental music, director of visual art, and director of choral general elementary music. We've got a couple of admins, we have a PD specialist, we have a special projects coordinator. So there's a lot of resources and a lot of support at the central level in our district for fine arts. But it's also spread out across a 250 square mile and nearly 230 campuses. So that's a snapshot of kind of the perspective that I'll be bringing to this discussion. And I'd like to introduce you to our other presenter who's coming from a slightly different perspective.
Hello, I am Tracy Morgan. I'm principal of Baker High School in Baker, Louisiana. I am the polar opposite of Tim's situation. I come from a school district that is comprised of 5 schools, and I am the only high school in that small district. Our total district has about 1,300 students total. And although we are small in terms of our size, we are huge in terms of our support from the district office. So we have that in common. I also have with me today Ms. LaQuisha Comeaux, who serves on our instructional leadership team. She also serves as the English department chairperson. And she is here to talk about how the importance of music has to be, it has to come from top to bottom. And so she'll talk about that in terms of support and the overall vision of what music must look like in a school.
So, you joined our session today. You might be a part of the I-65 corridor project. You might not. You might have simply seen the title and thought, you know what, my school district or my school is starting to trend toward becoming more urban. And I'm scared about it. I've heard all these things about it's challenging to be in an urban school and I'm afraid of it. You may be in a situation where you're like, yeah, I've worked in an urban school for 30 years and I can tell you it's challenging. It's not scary, but it's challenging. Either way, you're in that position where the information we have today is going to pertain to you. Well, if you're in that situation and you've got an urban situation approaching, danger. There's challenges ahead, right? These are the things your urban arts administrator is thinking about. And it's really important that you're able to get inside that person's mind because it helps you to understand their motivations. So this is just a hodgepodge of problems that your fine arts administrator is thinking about. One, the district or the school is managing shrinking enrollment. And we all know that as enrollment shrinks, resources shrink, which is stressful. You're constantly getting pushed. We've got to find a way to increase enrollment, find a way to increase enrollment. The student population is less intrinsically drawn to the traditional programs. I know this is something we face all the time. We want to offer marching band and concert band. Why? Well, because that's the way it's been since time immemorial. When Mr. Band came out of the primordial ooze in the year 1203 PC, he decided that band would be marching and concert, and henceforth we've done it forever. Well, okay, and that's worked to a certain degree, but really what we're trying to do is provide music education to the students, and that needs to speak to their culture and their background, and sometimes concert band and marching band, or the way you're programming those things, may not necessarily help. Students rely on school-provided transportation. Okay? You may have grown up in a situation where you had sectional 4 days a week, and you were expected to stay at the band hall till 9 p.m. practicing your scales, and then mom would come pick you up. Well, when mom has to work at night and dad has to work at night, or dad's not around, that's not an option. So you've got to be thinking there. Challenging problems at home, creating challenging students at school. One of the things we're going to be talking about in a little bit is called social emotional learning, SEL. It's something you may have heard bandied about. We are a key solution in the challenges of the student who's having difficulty at home being more successful at school. An unbalanced ratio of resources to student need. We have the highest need students and often are receiving the least in funding. Okay? Most students are unable to afford their own instruments. Private lessons, what is that? How is that even financially possible? Families often lack the finances to expose their children to the arts. And that's an important one. I remember the first time that I got to go see the Dallas Symphony Orchestra growing up in Dallas was in 3rd grade, and it was because my school took me there. I came home, told my parents, oh my gosh, this was amazing, and so they started taking me to some concerts. Well, if I hadn't had that mind-blowing experience, I don't know that I would have wanted to sign up in band in 6th grade, and so I'd probably be a property lawyer or something right now, which, come to think of it, might have actually been, well, nevertheless, it took me down the path that I'm headed on. And again, decreased enrollment numbers leading to decreased resources for the school. An unmanageable scale. I know this is something that we deal with in Dallas. One of the reasons why I told you the numbers we fight is someone will come to me and say that we need to make sure that students are getting better access to music in our elementary schools. Make it so. Okay? I need a full report on that in 6 days as to how we're going to accomplish that. Well, that's 250 teachers, and it's 150 campuses and 150 principals, different principals, all with different philosophies. So when you get to a large scale, it's challenging. Now on a campus level, it's the same. Okay? If you're principal and you have 1,500 students that you have to oversee and maintain, and you've got 1,500 variables and all these teachers, again, you start to deal with a scale that feels unmanageable. The high teacher to principal turnover. I think I've had so many conversations with you all the last few days telling me I build up a great relationship with my principal and then they're gone and I have to start from scratch. Fewer highly qualified job applicants. Highly qualified is in quotes because using the ESSA language there. Aging campuses. Many designed before modern rehearsal space existed. Here's an example. In Dallas ISD, we have a gorgeous building. It's Woodrow Wilson High School. The school is 104 years old. It's amazing. And they've very purposefully kept it, they haven't changed it because it's a cultural landmark. They weren't doing band halls back then. And the average classroom size was way smaller. There are certain restrictions on the kinds of actual changes we can make to that building because of the cultural connections. So how do we get them a band hall? I mean, it's some of the things that we're trying to work through. It's cool that they get to go to school in that building. It's gorgeous. But we got to get them a band hall. And then this one is big to me. Fine arts isn't the pretty girl at the dance anymore. When I talk to my band director, my high school band director, and folks who taught back in the 60s, or the 70s and the 80s, where fine arts was the new penicillin for education. It was going to solve all the problems. We get kids involved in fine arts and test scores will go up and student engagement will go up. And it's so exciting. There was a proliferation and an explosion of fine arts programs across the country. Now it's CTE, right? Now it's Kate and it's coding and while no one has come out and said, well, you're not important anymore, we're just not the new guy. And so as a result, we often still have to raise our hands, and the advocacy piece for us, which quite frankly, we didn't have to do. The early folks had to do it to get everyone all excited, and then for a long time, people in my generation of teaching didn't have to advocate because everybody already knew it was awesome. And now we're getting back to that other piece. So this is just a kind of a list of the challenges that your fine arts administrator is thinking about. My recommendation is to realize that these sort of can all be distilled down into certain categories. You've got community problems or challenges, you have resource challenges, and you have operational challenges. And you, as the band director or the orchestra director or the choir director or the elementary music teacher, have key ways to affect each of these that you can sort of help with. Now, here's another thing. Depend on your strengths. So, one of the first things that always shocks me, and again, I think if we went around the room, we would hear some of the distinct challenges that you face working in an urban school setting. I will tell you, there are distinct advantages as well, especially depending on the situation that you're in. So again, I kind of talked about for us, and I'd love to brainstorm with folks who are on the opposite end of the spectrum, but for us, we have some community partners that are helpful. But I think this first one here is absolutely going to work in any. So here's the thing that shocked me. My first teaching gig was in a community called Frisco up in Texas. It's a suburb. It blew up. It was super fast. When I moved there in 2003, there were 2 high schools. Now there's 11. Most everybody who lives there has lived there for less than 7 years. So when I taught in the high schools, nobody was really connected to those schools. They just lived there, so they went there. When I came to Dallas, and I went to a football game, and I sat in the stands, I happened to be sitting next to the drum major's parents, and grandparents, and aunts and uncles. And they all went to that school, and they were all in the band, and they all live in the neighborhood. So there's this generational legacy and loyalty to the schools, a true deep belief. And we all know, if you get on the wrong side of that, that can create a real challenge. But when you manage it and utilize it as a strength, it is something that you have that I guarantee you all the suburban schools that are 5 minutes old would kill to have, is that community support that's in their blood because it was their school and it was their band. You have parents who truly appreciate when you work hard for their kiddo. You really stand out. I bet you a lot of you have seen this, where a parent recognizes you're staying late for my son or daughter, you're arranging transportation, you're making sure he gets food, you're making sure he's got a home horn or whatever. They really appreciate it and are willing to take a bullet for you when the time comes. Kids whose lives are truly changed, again, they will do anything for their kids. Similar, again, when I got to Dallas and I started talking to our kids, and they started telling me about their band director or their choir director, as if like it was a cult. You know, they were telling me about the most amazing person they've ever met in their lives is Mr. or Miss so-and-so. And it's all because when it distills down, they felt like this is the first person who saw something in me, said, I can do it. I said, no, I can't. They said, yes, you can. And it turned out I could. And it was this transformational moment for them. A community that's thirsty for a school to be proud of. You give them something to be excited about, and they will support you in droves. And again, I would imagine it's a similar situation.
It's exactly the same thing.
Yep. Now, for us, we're also relying on some key partners. So when I'm trying to differentiate the Dallas ISD offerings against, say, what a Frisco ISD can offer, or what a Carmel can offer, okay, I'm looking at some of the things that differentiate us. We have this great fine arts litany of folks that can help support us and provide organizational experiences to our students. Lastly, scale. So when you're a larger entity, you've got while the financial resources that are given to you may not meet your needs, pooling them or using them differently can help. The number of programs, which gives you political scale. So there are a lot of things that can actually help your fine arts administrator and in your work with your fine arts administrator to leverage the key strengths that you have as an urban arts teacher. And sometimes you need to show these to your administrator and say, hey, how can we turn our urban frown upside down, which is what I just said, and make sure that we're actually utilizing all of our strengths. By the way, when this is over, there'll be a link on the page here where you can download a copy of this. Now, many times, and I know I used to feel this way, and sometimes I still do, you see your administrator once or twice a year, 3 times a year maybe. If you got a great one, you see them all the time. But if you've got one that's really busy, you don't see them a lot. And when you do, maybe it's a brush in the hallway, or it's a, you didn't sign at the faculty meeting, one of those kind of things. Not great. They seem like a mystery wrapped in an enigma. You have a conversation with them that you think is going to go one way, you turn around twice, go, I don't know how we got there, but okay. Or you go with a request. You think, I need more instruments. I'm just going to go tell them real quick. And the word no comes out faster than you actually got your sentence going. And you think, what is it with this person? What are they thinking? Well, here's what we're going to talk about today. Let's solve for X. It's not a mystery. It's an equation. And you need to be the X factor that makes your administrator's job easier. Now, I know what you're thinking. If this is why you brought me into room 112 today, you have misadvertised. You said you were going to be teaching me how to get what I need out of my administrator. I will. It's getting there. Later slide. But this is the first part. Okay? We're laying the groundwork. So the magic, the rules for solving the equation. I'm a kid. It's 2nd grade. I'm at Timber Creek Elementary in Flower Mound, Texas. I'm so frustrated. We've just learned division and multiplication. And I've been working hard. I've been doing my multiplication tables. I'm getting better at it. And the teacher, this evil teacher, decides, well, you're good at multiplication and division, and you're good at addition and subtraction. Let's put them all together. Okay. Seems easy enough. So I start working on the worksheet. I hand it in. Poof. Teacher, give me 100. What's up? These are all wrong. What do you mean they're all wrong? These are all wrong. Do it again. Go back and get the same answer. They're all wrong. I finally ask, what is going on? I'm thinking, I'm doomed. That's it. I'm going to be a trash man when I grow up because I can't figure out how to do math. What is the deal? She goes, do you remember yesterday when we talked about the order of operations? I said, well, I kind of wasn't paying attention to that. Yes, I know you weren't paying attention. You actually fell asleep during that part of the lesson. So she gave me a handout that talked about PEMDAS, the keys to solving the equation. Do any of you remember PEMDAS? You're all like, God, yes, but it's awful. It's parentheses. Exponents. Multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. In that order. Okay? So today we're going to learn the PEMDAS for solving the equation with your administrator. It's like PEMDAS, but it's even more useful. P, prognosticate. Don't procrastinate. When you're working with your administrator, you need to seem as though you have a crystal ball on your desk. Mr. and Miss Principal, I want to let you know. I just had a conversation that it's possible we'll end up getting back to the president of the Band Booster organization who lives 2 doors down from the school board president, and I know that they're going to see each other this Saturday at a cookout, and so I want you to know that that may end up getting to the superintendent, and here you go. Like a 5-minute thing real quick. Or just had a situation with a parent. I called them after I pulled little Johnny out of sectional for throwing his trumpet across the room and then wearing it as a hat. Parent was rather upset. It's likely you're going to get a phone call about that. If you can anticipate anything that's ever going to hit your principal's radar, and that goes for the central office too, you are going to be so loved. So loved. Because there are 2 things. Basically, your principal's day goes like this. Okay? They have the things they plan to do, and then they have everything that comes up. That's a 1% to 99% ratio. They have planned their day to 100%. But then the phone rings the first time, or someone's at their door asking for this or asking for that, and everything goes way off course. Okay? So your ability to put things back in the 1% that she can schedule changes the game. Okay? Never let them get surprised. Now, that also means that if you have staff, they know this too. You should never get surprised. Your assistant band director should always be scanning the world to see, is there anything that's going to hit the band director's desk to help? It can work its way up, okay? And your student leadership can help with that too. You know, someone's upset, they think someone's going to quit band, they're always in that prognosticating deal, just to kind of see, is there something that needs to be kicked up the chain? Engage them all. So, one of the things that I guarantee you, your principal is evaluated on every year, is student engagement. There's a student engagement survey, there's a student engagement quiz, there's a this, there's a that, somewhere it's in there. It's probably in the state data and the district data. If you can show that you are a key warrior in the fight for engagement. And we're not just talking about, yes, my kids are sitting in a chair playing an instrument. We're talking about, these are kids who come to sectional after school. They live in the band hall. I got to kick them out to stop practicing after 7 o'clock because my wife's going to divorce me if I don't. All these things to show an intense level of engagement that spreads through the school. If you can show that you have that level of engagement and that your enrollment numbers are increasing over time, you can show that your PTA or your band booster or your orchestra booster or choir booster meetings are increasing over time. Ways you can show you're engaging the community through the number of events that you do. These are all documentable things that makes your principal's life easier, both in the short term, come that evaluation, and in the long term because it does improve the quality of the school. Manage the radar. This goes a little bit back to prognosticate, but here was my rule when I was a teacher. I know my administrator is constantly running a radar. They have to pick up on any blips in the force and immediately get to it. Because if they sit there long enough, you're going to find they metastasize and the cancer eats the whole school. So they're running their radar. And the only time my program is going to show up on their radar is when it's making them look good. That's it. They're going to know that band exists because a parent called and said, "Thank you for your leadership. Mr. So-and-so in the band hall is simply the walking embodiment of all that is great in education today. I appreciate you for your leadership, and boy, I'm glad Johnny goes to your school." Click, and the principal's going, "Huh?" And then somebody calls and yells at them from, I don't know, drill team, because that's likely. So that sort of thing. Likewise, you are anticipating that here's a good one, okay? Someone comes out and says, "All right, we have state standardized testing coming in next week, and I need everyone to sign up to help monitor the test." The band director in you goes, "Well, surely not me. I have sectional next Tuesday. We're playing the Hindemith Symphony, and if I don't work with my horns, then we're going to be sunk. My principal will surely understand this. I will simply email him or her and say, 'Well, I have the Hindemith Symphony horn sectional. Surely you understand.'" And so, bing, it comes on the radar, and they go, "Wow, this person is really into themselves. I don't know what Hindemith is, and I don't know what a French horn is, but wow, you're high maintenance." They don't care. What they care about is their state requirement to have all that taken care of. You're going to make a choice to lose substantial relationship political capital with your principal over that sectional. You're making a choice. Instead, the right choice should be, you're the first to go, "I'd love to help. Put me in whatever place you need. Whatever it is gets signed up last, I'm ready to help." And it's not a suck-up thing. It's an understanding. You are investing in your relationship. You are making sure that your actions are on message. Discipline. Discipline in-house. Don't be, now, that's not, understand, I'm not saying, have Johnny do 500 push-ups because he showed up 1 minute late to class and then he dies and then you're in the Dallas Morning News and all that, which if you're working in Louisiana and you're in the Dallas Morning News, well done, that's impressive. But nevertheless, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about handle your discipline in-house. If a student is talking during rehearsal and it's happening once or twice, don't be that person who says, go to the office, go to the principal. Because the principal, A, doesn't have the context to deal with it. And here's the other thing. You want to run a successfully disciplined program? And I think our principals would agree with this statement. And if not, I'd love to have a scurried conversation about it. The children need to care far more about what you think of them than what the principal thinks of them. If you truly want to have a highly disciplined group of students, they need to be 10 times more afraid is the wrong word, but afraid of losing your respect than being sent to the principal's office. Being sent to the principal's office, you're simply outsourcing it. You're outsourcing the responsibility. You are sending the message to the kid, you have won, child. You are beyond my abilities as a professional educator in order to integrate into your needs. And so I will send you to the professionals while I sit here and play band. No, that's not what we want. We want is, there ain't nothing you can come up with that I ain't seen before. I will never run out of ways to continue molding you to be a successful young band member. Now put your instrument away and go sit over there and write something, whatever. But the moment you're getting them out, you're sending that message. That also, by the way, involves your staff. This was a big deal to me. When we went to staff meetings with the principal, God forbid, I hired a first-year assistant. And she was super talented. And now she's been out teaching forever. She's ruling the world. I'm glad I left the band thing because she'd be kicking my butt if I were still a band director. But back then, she just graduated. She was 24. And I'm mortified because she's 2 rows in front of me on her phone texting while the principal's speaking. I'm like, ah! And she's wearing a band shirt. Part of me is hoping like, well, maybe he won't know. I'll be like, who's that student sitting there? But no, she's wearing a band shirt. So I sent her a text message saying, put your phone down. And it taught me we needed to have an understanding that at staff meetings, you're going to be the most behaved. You're going to sit up front. You're going to take notes. You're going to know everything that there is to know because you're going to care about what your principal cares about. The best advice I ever got from my current boss, who's the deputy chief of academics, said, you need to care about you need to know and care about what your boss cares about. That's how you work to make them successful, and that's how they know you're on their team. So if a principal calls a faculty meeting, by the way, principals do not like to call faculty meetings because they know 20% of people aren't going to show up and there's going to have to document this and that. And why didn't you show up? I'm going to have to call. You're going to have everybody griping and moaning about how you don't appreciate their time. The only reason a principal calls a faculty meeting is if there is honest to God information that you have to know. So be there bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, take notes and make sure you know it. Okay? Lastly, 2 more. Aggressive positivity. Okay, so this week we've talked a good deal about being aggressive, right? I'm going to frame that just a touch. This is my personal motto. I use it with my staff. I used to use it with my kids. In my job now, I use it with our directors. Be aggressively positive. Someone presents you with a challenge. I have to work. I really want to be in marching band. I have to work, though, and I can only make 2 rehearsals a week. The immediate thing you may think is your mind goes through all the permutations. You decide this kid will never be able to march and perform. They're never going to have a circumstance, and eventually they're going to feel unhappy because they're not performing at the level of their peers, which is likely going to cause a discipline problem. And then as it goes on over time, it's going to permeate the band, and it's going to metastasize like a cancer. And so there's no place for you in the band. I'm sorry. Your mind goes through all of those things. If instead you look at it through an aggressively positive lens, you realize, okay, wait a minute. This kid has a lot of challenges at home. We might be the one beacon of light and actual ability to give some focus and structure to the day. While he's going to be behind in a lot of ways because he's not getting the same number of hours, we're going to have to find a way to supplement that. I can supplement that through this and these master classes, and then hopefully we can get them there. And then as time goes on, maybe he can start teaching private lessons for some money, and then that will help. We'd love to have you in the band. Great. So it's all about the way you're thinking about it. Some situations require you to be aggressively positive. And here's what I mean by that. Here's what I'm facing right now. Our district has had declining enrollment because of charters and private schools for the last few years. As a result, my budget has been cut 10 to 20% every year, while, because of some of the things we've been doing, enrollment's been skyrocketing. It's been increasing 7 to 10% a year. Instrumental music, band and orchestra, has increased 60% over the past 5 years. So we have all these kids signing up for band and orchestra and dance and choir and whatever, and yet I'm getting less money. So we either have to cut services, or we have to cut instrument purchases, or we have to cut repair services. One way or the other is bad. My first inclination is to grab a frosty beverage and sit in the corner and weep for a few minutes, and then put my resume up. I used to work at Chick-fil-A. I bet they'd rehire me. I was really good in the drive-thru. Or here's this dark, terrible, we're going to lose everything we have feeling, and the only way to get through it is to say, gosh darn it, there's a solution here. I don't know what it looks like, but I will find it. And we will permeate, and we will study every single aspect of what we're doing to find a cost to $1 per student. We'll get rid of the things where there's fluff. We're going to invest in the things. This is a great opportunity for us to do our job better. And that's how I have to think of it. And we've done that the last couple of years, and it's been huge. We've actually increased our offerings. We've gotten rid of some of the bloat. It's caused us to be more efficient and effective. You choose which of those two ways you go. And by the way, you do this with your kids, it's like, that was my whole thing with leadership training, was aggressive positivity. It's not just being positive. Oh, I'm happy today, isn't that nice? It's, I am happy today, and you're going to be happy too. Solutions. Remember how I said your principal's day goes off the rails real fast? It's because of problems. I guarantee you she could give you a list right now of 15 people in her life that the moment the door knocks or the phone rings, she's thinking, please God, not that person. Not because you don't like that person, not because that person's not wonderful. They could be amazing, one of the best people who ever walked the face of the planet. But they're also really good at coming to tell you what's wrong. I need more instruments. The pipes are dripping in the bathroom. The science lab's on fire. Okay, that one you probably should bring to the principal's knowledge. But every time you speak, it's problem, 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 problem. Now, I know why that is, and you know why it is too. We just said, how many times do you really get an honest-to-God one-on-one talk with your administrator? It's probably pretty few and far between, because they're busy. It's not because they don't care. It's because they got a lot of people that are their stakeholders. So you go, this is my shot, and I'm not throwing away my shot. Now you can't use this for copyright reasons. So I'm going to go in and make darn sure that my principal knows every single thing that I need in this conversation. Then you're labeled as the problem guy, the guy it's never good enough for, the gal who always has something that they need. You're always there with your hand out. Instead, solutions. Always bring solutions. Anything you're going to come up with. Hey, I wanted to let you know, our enrollment next year is booming. I could not be more excited about it. The student engagement scores are going to go through the roof. Man, am I aggressively positive about this. However, one of the things that might bring a challenge, we don't quite have enough instruments, but don't stress. Here's someone from an approved vendor. We worked with them, and we actually homogenized to make sure we're buying all the same kind of instruments, so we got a 20% discount on it. All of this wouldn't have to be bought over time, but here's our actual trend line that's going up, and you're going to see that we've been increasing 7% every single year. So here's a 5-year plan of what we think we would need to give you plenty of time to work with your constituency to see if you could build up the money. I'm going to leave all of this here with you, and then I'm going to get with your secretary to see if I can meet with you in about a week to follow up, because it's going to be a lot of data. But I'm so excited about that we've got all these kids joining band. Anyway, thanks for all your support. I'll see you later. The principals doesn't go, wow, I got a problem. And even if you could say, we have a lot of kids coming next year, we don't have any instruments. You could buy some and then walk away. Like, yes, you did propose a solution. Okay? But in my situation, they got to look and, okay, who's a vendor and what am I going to buy and what is a saxophone versus a sousaphone? Well, the saxophone's cheaper. I'll just buy those instead of these sousaphones. Like, you've given them a whole list. You've given them all the data. And what they really need to know is it will cost this much to solve my problem. Then they can start working toward that. So always bring solutions. All right. So let's do some practicing on solving for community solutions and challenges. So the declining enrollment challenge, charters, private schools. Some of you may have been hit by this more than others. In our district, it's been a real situation that we're trying to deal with. Recognize, you are the solution. If you are currently in a district where charter schools are pillaging your enrollment, you need to make it real clear that your communication department understands this one thing. Those charter schools aren't coming close to replicating the services that you provide. It's not even, they have a veneer of it. It's like when you drive by those, moderately nice homes and you see all the beautiful stonework and you go, wow, those are gorgeous stone homes. And then you go back 10 years later when the foundation's moved a little bit and it cracks and you see, oh, it's just a little veneer of stone. It's a whole different thing. And what we found, we get so many parents that come back because music or band was important to their kid, and they called and said, hello, charter school. Well, hello, it's great to speak to you. Well, I see you have a bright, shiny new campus. We sure do. Do you offer band? Uh-huh. Okay, great. And then they send their kid there. And band is, once a week, we'll put an instrument in your hand, and it'll be led by somebody who probably played piano 20 years ago and certainly isn't a certified music educator. Or if they are, they're a choir teacher. And yeah, they have band. But they don't have Friday night lights. They don't have $620 uniforms. They don't have all the things that we provide. And they start to see that art's light isn't enough for my kid, and they come back. Well, if we get our messaging right, they'll understand that right off the gate. They won't leave. So again, that's one of the things you have to understand. And your principal and your central administrators are constantly hearing about the need to retain and recapture students. So recognize your piece in that fight and actively help to do it. In your own program's PR that you work on, okay? Target it toward that. Target it toward what you offer and the differentiations. If there's a charter school in your town that you're particularly having to deal with on a regular basis, find out what they offer. But be a part of that. And if you can start to show, and you have student testimonials that said, I stayed at such and such high school because of what we offer here, again, you start to become invaluable and you're helping. So again, you need to have a deep and engaging course catalog and own the message that you are the key differentiator. Let's talk deep and engaging course catalog real quick. What I was talking about earlier. It may be at your school offering band and marching band and concert band and choir and orchestra is fine. We have some schools in Dallas where that's what they want. We have others where they want mariachi, where they want jazz, where they want guitar and modern band. Now listen, the band director in me, when I first saw a modern band class, let me state what that is. It is what it sounds like. Guitars and basses and drums and keyboards and learning music production. The band director in me died just a little bit when I saw that in our schools. Because I had been brought up to think, this is threat. This new music make threat to us, must attack, right? The caveman in me comes out because you must attack the new. Here's what I found. If it's in the right places, there are kids who will never join band. There are kids who will never join orchestra. They don't want to be in something with 200 members. They're not interested in that. It's not the music of their lives, it's not the music of their generation, or they're interested in music business. They're interested in music production. Well, in those cases, our modern band is a great opportunity for those kids. We're cautious about where we offer it. We make sure that it's not going to cannibalize other programs, but it's a really neat and effective program. And it's looking through the lens of what your community wants to study comes down to what is your ultimate goal. If your ultimate goal is for as many kids to have their lives transformed by music study, then you can't just stick to, well, I learned band, so you'll learn band, right? Scheduling for success. During the day stuff. Creative, scalable course solutions. So, for instance, in Dallas ISD, recently we started offering homogeneous and heterogeneous beginner classes. So, for those who don't know what that means, because you're an orchestra person and you're like, huh? Or maybe you have to deal with that too. What I'm talking about is a clarinet class versus a woodwind class versus a beginning band class. So we created the option, but it's not right for every school. The first thing that happened was I had one of our smaller enrollment middle schools say, I've been asking for this for years. I'm so excited. I can't wait for you to approve for me to have these courses. And I said, I will totally approve for you to have these courses. I need to see your schedule layout. How are you going to teach them all? Okay, I'll get that to you. Never came. Then I get a phone call from the principal about a month later that says, Mr. So-and-so said you were going to approve this for us, but I still can't get him into the thing. And I said, yeah, he never came back. He's got to make a schedule. Well, as soon as he did, he saw there's only one person, and it was going to destroy their school's master schedule. It's a small school. They don't have 85 offerings of 8th grade math. There's 2. Every kid's got to be plugged into one of those 2. So for that school, he wanted me to he said, oh, look, this is really important. I want you to get in there and fight that principal. It's literally what he said. Because that's my job. I put on the battle armor, and they get a lance, and we got on horses, and, it's a whole thing. You come see it sometime. It's awesome. I always lose. She's great with a lance. And I explained, that's not what this is about. We're here to support the principals. And by the way, even if I came in and fought and got you what you wanted through just political muscling, it would fall apart in the second week of school because kids wouldn't be enrolled in the right classes. So when you're thinking about your scheduling, you may be thinking, I got to get heterogeneous classes. I have to. Or I have to get homogeneous classes. I got to have a saxophone class in a few years. Because saxophone is different than clarinet, because the embouchure needs to be changed when you have a cool airstream, when we're raised 20%. All these things. Okay, sometime let's talk clarinet embouchure. I love it. but you want a separate one. Okay, so we talked about this the other day. Have a 5-year plan to work toward it. And ask your principal, for me to do this, what would you need? What would you need for me to have this in a few years? So that they can start thinking through all those permutations. Outside of school, link all of your events to assessment data. When your principal gets a phone call that complains about little Johnny being out late till 9 o'clock because of some concert or some contest. First of all, try and not have middle school little Johnny out at 9 o'clock. But we all know the bus, whatever, CC's line is really long or whatever, okay? Y'all have CC's, yeah? Okay, it's national. Everybody takes their band to CC's. It's like a thing. Anyway, when she gets that phone call, she can defend it because you weren't taking the kids to a movie. You were taking the kids for an assessment-driven performance that they received feedback and hopefully a trophy, and it was educationally based. Give your principal something to defend. Avoid weekends. That's very helpful, especially in an urban setting. Kids have to work. Don't put the kid in the situation where they have to choose between their job or being in band. Transportation and food. Recognize you're going to need to provide transportation. That's a deal breaker. One of the things we do in our district is any event that we're going to host, we have satellite sites that the kids can go to where we'll bus them in to where they need to be. But recognize mom and dad may not be home in order to get them. So if you're going to have a mandatory performance somewhere, make sure we bus them in. And then ensure equity. That really goes back to that. If no matter what set of circumstances at home, there's not something that's going to keep the kiddo from being able to participate. Because this stops the phone calls. That's managing the radar. The principal's not going to get a negative phone call about one of your events if you took care of those things. Program offerings that connect to the community, okay? Connect to the culture. Don't assume that kids will be naturally drawn to sign up for your event. So again, connect to the culture of reflect the community experiences and remain standards-based. Resources. Every instrument's a school instrument. I realize that, and that can be challenging. The plus side to that is, in the instruments that are not typically school-owned instruments, you may be the only one buying them in bulk. And in bulk can even mean 5 or 10. Okay? So use the time, even if you don't have a district inventory list, establish a program inventory list. So you're going to buy this consistent branding. Okay? And you're going to do that over time and supplement it. That's going to help you use the power of your purchasing scale to try and drive that down. A district accurate inventory. All right, you want to talk to anybody in administration about what keeps them up at night. There is one thing that keeps my prescription of Ambien on auto scheduler, okay? And it is this: inventory. I can have done an amazing job. I can have raised the contest scores across the thing. We can have 100,000 kids enrolled in the fine arts. I can have the superintendent writing a unicorn Pegasus with playing all of our fight songs to work every day. I mean, I can do all this amazing stuff. But when internal audit calls and says, where are these 24 Sousa phones that have been all across the district and we can't find them anywhere? They represent, oh goodness, about $150,000 worth of district money, taxpayer money. Where are those? Chick-fil-A for me, okay? And not because I'm rich enough to buy, I'm working there again is what I'm saying. So that's what scares me. If you have an accurate inventory, there's a couple of strengths here. One is, you know where stuff is, no one's getting fired. Bing. Secondly is this: you can start to track the average lifespan of your instruments. When you come to your principal, you need to arm them with data, because that's the other thing to realize. The principal is not sitting here with a giant pot of money in their office. It's not how it works. You come in and you go, I need 15 more clarinets. Well, what would that cost? $15,000. Okay, hold on a moment. They open a little, cubby in the back, and the rainbow comes out from where the pot of gold is, and they scoop it up and come give it to you. Not the way it works. It'd be really cool if it was, but that's not. What they have to do is pick up the phone and call the guy who does have the magic pot of rainbow gold, the CFO or whatever, and beg for it. Arm them with the data about the average lifespan of the instrument. We've owned it for this year. It's now beyond that life, and as a result, the cost of repair is going to increase 120% over the next 5 years, blah, 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 blah. And boom, someone opened up the magic rainbow gold door and got you what you needed. Okay, so link repair costs to their working lifespan. Harness the power of partnerships. So this is what we talked about. Here's what we do in Dallas. Remember when I told you a little bit ago about how we have really increased our enrollment over the last 5 years, it started 10 years ago. Our second graders, every one of them in the district, goes to see the Dallas Children's Theater. Every kid gets to go see live professional theater in second grade. In third grade, we take them to the Texas Ballet Theater, and they see Peter and the Wolf, performed in English and in Spanish. The bilingual people help pay for that. Ka-ching. Fourth grade, every kid in the district gets a curated tour of the Dallas Museum of Art. Fifth grade, this is my favorite, because it's right before they sign up for band or orchestra, they get to choose to go to Dallas Symphony Orchestra concert. They go to the Meyerson, which is this big fancy place, and get to go. Or they can choose the Dallas Wind Symphony, which is amazing if you've never gotten to hear them. And we packed like a 6,000, hold 6,000, and we do 4 of those concerts. And the kids go wild. A couple years ago, they did a Frozen sing-along, like all these kids standing up singing the Frozen songs. Before I had a daughter, so I didn't hate the Frozen song yet. It was, oh man, it was really powerful. But anyway, those kids have been exposed to every aspect of it. So when 6th grade comes around and they finally get to produce some art, they're jazzed about it, and they know what they want to do. So think about a pipeline of event like that again harnesses the power of partnership. And then once we hit secondary, that's when they get the opportunity to learn the profession and to perform. If you want your principal to hate you, this is what you do. Principal, yes? I am in dire need of an assistant band, orchestra, choir director. Ah, you need an assistant? Yes. I have 490 children in band, and there's just me. Well, 490 to 1 does sound a bit extreme. It sure is. If you could possibly help me, all right. And then the principal goes behind the scenes and they fight. And you do want to talk about putting on the lance and fighting, get into a budget meeting with all the other departments and principals that you're stealing money from. That's a jousting match. But anyway, they finally wrestle away from the gates of death, an FTE, to give unto you. And they say, I have done this for you, band director, because I believe in thee. And you say, why, principal, I appreciate you. I will find a candidate and bring them to you, and they shall be amazing. Very well then. And you post it on the job board, and the first dummy that applies, who happens to be, well, you have corps experience, great, you marched corps, and you got teeth, that's nice, and I like your haircut, that's pretty good. You say you play trumpet, cool. Come with me, I'm going to introduce you to the principal. And the principal sees, here's the band director that I really respect, telling me this is the person. If you've ever wondered why your principal doesn't grill the person that it'll only happen once, by the way, if you screw it up, doesn't grill the person you're bringing, it's because they trust you. And they go, okay, Mr. and Miss So-and-so says you're the one, you're the one. Here are the rules of my campus, this is what I expect, and I can't wait to work with you. And they recommend the hire. And then the bozo doesn't show up, or the bozo doesn't come to this, or the bozo gets drunk in front of kids, or whatever, and they get fired. You will never, ever, ever, ever repair that relationship with the principal. They vouched for you, and the principal looked bad. Because I guarantee you, you'll probably have one tough meeting with your principal about that. The principal will have 15. They'll have one with the head of HR. They're going to have one with the head of curriculum. They're going to have one with the head of schools. They may have one with the superintendent. They're probably going to have one with the news. All of which, by the way, is trying to protect your stupid behind who did this in the first place. So, search for diamonds. Here's my recommendation. When I'm hiring somebody for a position, whether it's head band director or ninth band director, they got to have political prowess. They have to have amazing pedagogy. I'm going to ask you, there are 3 schools of flute vibrato. Which do you subscribe to and why? Tell me 3 instruments that students shouldn't play when they're double jointed. Tell me the difference between a saxophone embouchure and a clarinet embouchure. Explain to me when and why you would introduce vibrato to trumpet and which method you would use. I'm going to ask you a billion questions to find out. I'm going to try and find out your musicianship. I want to listen to things that you've done before. If you can't, you're going to sight sing in my office and you go, I'm a band director. Exactly, you're a band director, but do you have an ear? Business acumen. If the time comes that you rise through our ranks, can you be CEO of the program? Leadership abilities. Will people want to follow you to the depths, to the gates of heck? Because let's face it, band camp in August is pretty close to the gates of heck. Okay? If you don't have those 5 things, I am uninterested in you. Now, you may have a mixture of those, but it also tells me how I need to support you. match the candidate to the position. If Dr. So-and-so, who just got tired of teaching, music education at Harvard, applies for your 4th band director position, probably not a great fit, okay? That person's probably going, make sure you're matching. Don't, unless you really want drama on your hands, if you've got 2 or 3 assistants and your first assistant position opens up and you decide, 2 and 3, they're just not what I'm looking for. They don't have the gumption. And then you hire a first-year teacher in that first assistant position, God bless you. That's going to be fun. If you could please set up a Skype camera so I can watch those fireworks, that'd be great. And again, all that's going to affect your principal. It affects campus morale. It will affect their evaluation. So be smart about that. Lastly, and this is one I especially talked about when I was giving this presentation in Texas, there are 49 other states. Look at them all. The first thing that people do when they post a job on the internet is they decide immediately what they're not going to take care of. Now, here's the thing. Yeah, you post it on the internet and you're going to get 250 resumes. One of those might be your diamond. You are looking for the perfect person for the job. And I do believe there is one perfect person that God created in the ethos to be your assistant band director. And you must search through the world to find that person. And if they went to school in Saskatchewan, they're still probably worth a phone call to find out what they know. Okay? So it's not... And by the way, just because they came from Texas, they could be a total dolt. There's a bunch of people who don't know jack who work in Texas. Okay? And I'm saying that for the camera. Anyhow. I'm among them, but that's okay. Student engagement, SEL. This will be fast. Social emotional learning. How many of you have heard of that? If you don't now, you're going to. It's like sweeping the nation, this huge thing. Basically, it comes down to teaching the whole child, and it comes down to teaching the student how to work with progressive struggle or productive struggle, and to teamwork and all these sorts of things. We've been doing it in the fine arts for years. As soon as you read it, you're going to go like, oh, you mean you all just finally figured out what we've been doing to make us so successful? They're calling it other stuff. So first of all, learn the lingo so you can speak educationese, which, by the way, when I switched to administration, God, that was hard. I had to learn a whole new language, educationese, but I've gotten better at it. Anyway, you study up on that, because you can be a key piece when your principal is told, you need to become an SEL campus. And they go, okay, we'll figure that out. You can immediately know what it is and get in there and help. Attendance. Figure out for your state what the school gets paid when kids come to school. Then work with your data person at school to find out the attendance rate of your kids. And show how what you do makes the school money. Why does athletics get the funding it gets? Well, they have ticket sales. And they have concessions. They make the district money. I guarantee you, if you look at the fine arts and actual attendance data differences between the two, I guarantee you make more money for the school district than athletics does. I'll say that to the camera too. So anyway, but that's data that you can have to help. Student discipline, same thing, and academic achievement. Here's a big one. I was the worst. Okay, avoid fine arts wingitis. I'd get into a new school, beautiful fine arts wing, it was wonderful. In fact, this happened. 4th year into my first job, I go to a campus lunch. It's the end of the year. And I never go to these, but my assistant dragged me because he says I have a reputation around campus of being a jerk. So, okay, well, that's fine. They're right. But so I go and I sit down, and I'm talking to somebody across the table from me. We're having hamburgers or whatever because the principal brought in the food. And we're talking, and I'm like, I've never met you. Are you new to our campus? I said, no, I've been here 4 years when the school opened. Well, I've been here 4 years since the school opened. She goes, yeah, you're the band director. Do you know who I am? No. I'm a science teacher. I've had an awful lot of your kids. And it was fine after that, but it hit me. Like, we've worked in the same building for 4 years. I know I've seen this person's face, but I have no idea who they are because I have fine arts wingitis. I never leave the fine arts wing. And it developed a reputation that band thought it was better than everybody else. Which, by the way that manifests itself is when you need to take a trip, that's why all of the core teachers pick up the phone or send an email to the principal saying, they cannot be out of my class. Why is it? Is it because they actually can't get the data mixed or caught back up? Probably not. It has more to do with the fact that jerk band director who walks around like he's better than everybody else all the time thinks that his thing's more important than mine, so I'm going to send it. And you don't even realize it. Well, it's because I'm here till 9 o'clock working in the thing, so I never go to anything. Understand how all that works. So don't get fine arts wingitis. Be at the prom. God bless you, and go get a drink after. But be at the prom, be at the dance, be out there, be a part of it, be a part of the school. Understand your role in the school community. Okay, so we've talked about solving for X, making you the X factor. What can your administrator do for you? This is the meat and potatoes of why you came. You need to acquire DSL certification, data as a second language. So according to all the big data we've gathered, our discussions about big data are up 72% this year alone. I have been in that meeting. Data is what rules the central office, and it's what rules who gets what. Approach every situation with this assumption. Your principal, your central admin wants to help you. They got into this because they wanted to help. Resource allocation. Document your program's value. I talked to you a little bit ago about knowing what it costs, what the school gets every day with weighted average daily attendance. Know that and calculate it and keep track of it. Retention data, pipeline data. How are you getting kids through the pipeline? How are you going to make sure that you know how many kids are coming? Let me give you some examples of the kind of data that I'm talking about. This is the data I keep. Oh, actually, even better. So here's data that I use and that I share with our teachers when they need to. This is for one particular school in our district, Skyline High School. So I can see over 5 years, they had 183 kids in band, dropped down to 168. Oh, they're up to 201. That's great. Kind of maintain it. Oh, we had a big dip this year. So when they call me, and they did this year, and say, we need saxophones. We need saxophones. I took a look and I go, you have almost 40 less kids in band this year. So I need you to kind of explain that to me. Also, we need to have a talk about what's causing the jumpiness, because when I look at your campus enrollment trends, I'm seeing this. Now, this is useful for you to have for your own data, but it's also useful to bring to your principal. Let's say you had one of these that was doing this, and you bring your principal along with the instrument list and along with who's played what and what you're anticipating over the next 5 years like we talked about. They'll bring this exact chart when they talk to the CFO. Okay? It's really important to be able to track that data. This is what we look at. It basically tracks our district-wide enrollment trends. Now, you also need data that's important to you. For instance, this would only matter to me. In Dallas, we have 9 board members, and there are 9 different board seats. And I need to know when I go to a board meeting, any one of them, they ask me, well, how's choir doing in District 5? And how's it been doing over the last 5 years? So I have formulas, right, that will aggregate and tell me at any given moment how choir is doing in District 5 and how it has been doing, and I can tell them, oh, we're up 6% this year over last, and we're on a track to grow or whatever. And I have that at my hands, on my iPad, all written by formulas, available anytime if I get a phone call. You want that data, because here's the thing, you never know when you're going to be talking to an influence maker. So you want to have that data with you. This is something I've written for me. Okay? Here's another example of something that I use. See if I can touch. It won't let me. The other example I was going to show you is a list of all of our schools and what they have. But if you can always be armed, and that's just an example, and it's really what I found in the last 4 years that I have to keep for my job. One of the things I kept when I was a band director was multi-year growth at all city, multi-year growth at all region, percentage of retention, and percentage of attrition, so that I could show not only do we get a lot of kids, but we keep them. And when we do lose them, here's the transition point. And by the way, we tend to lose them from 9th to 10th grade, and that's where we're only offering one section of pre-AP Calculus B, and that's one of the, so it's not just, it's actual correlational data as to why you're making a complaint about the master schedule, and not just, I mean, you can show historically that's been the case because we changed the only one offering to that in 2007, and if we look to see what was going on back behind here, you have that data, I guarantee you, everyone else coming to complain to them, they ain't bringing that kind of data. They're just saying, principal, fix it. Aye, aye, Captain, we'll get right on that. But if you bring that data, it makes all the difference. We're going to get to the questions portion here in just a second. Live your vision statement. At the end of the day, one of the things we've been working on all week is trying to make sure that you know what your vision statement is and how clear it is. Recognize, however, that your vision statement matters when you live it. Every interaction you have with administrators should be on message with your vision. And if your only way that folks know the vision is to hear you talk about it, then you're out of luck. If instead they see you live it, then we're on the right track. Your vision statement should be experienced, not merely read or heard. It should be widely known. Your teachers that work around the building, who see you around, should know what the band is all about or the choir is all about. It should guide every interaction that you have. When you decide whether or not to click to sign up for prom duty, your vision statement is what decides whether or not you do that, if it makes sense or makes time. We talked about utilizing your time best, and it's grounded in your why statement. We had a really great presentation yesterday talking about the importance of our why statement. The vision should be grounded in that. But this is the most important part I want to talk about. When you think about how you act on campus or act with any of your stakeholders, they should be experiencing your vision statement. If your vision statement, by the way, vision statement describes what you want your program to be in 5 years. If your vision statement is something that's simply written on a wall and it's up at the top of the band hall, it doesn't mean a thing. If your people are living it, then you're getting there. Decision makers need to see your return on investment. Your job is to use the vision statement to make it clear. So understand this, and this is the last thing I'm going to talk about with regards to resources. If someone comes to us and they ask us for money, they ask us for an FTE, they ask us for resources, everyone's asking. We're going to put those where we are guaranteed to get a return on investment. If I invest $4,000 for a clarinet for a student who wouldn't have been in band, who can now be in band, and that increases whatever, what is that going to do to my measurables? If I give $100,000 to strengthen the band, will it include test scores? Will I get my money back through average daily attendance? Will I get my money back through additional parents that are engaged in the school and now sending their kids here instead of charter schools? They have to see that return on investment. And your vision statement should include what that's going to look like. And because you live that vision statement every day, you are the walking embodiment of why your principals should say yes. Does that make sense? Okay, now I'm going to shut up and we can actually talk and hear from the folks at the ground level that you're used to dealing with. The principals and your colleagues that run the building, what questions do you have for us? How can we give you some advice?
I've got an admin who's really great, but and he's in his first year at my school, as am I. The only thing I'm getting a sense from him is that he's a little what I would call fluffy. He kind of says, yeah, sounds great. Let me see if I can look into that a little bit more, and we'll reapproach that. And sometimes it just doesn't really happen. Not all the time, but I'm wondering how I can follow up with them without coming across as obnoxious or...
I think the most important aspect of what we do as educators, and it doesn't matter if you're a principal, a teacher, custodian, cafeteria worker, the most important aspect of what we do as educators is relationship building. Even with everything that Tim went over, the bottom line is there must be a relationship between the principal, administrator, and the teacher. Once you have that relationship, another key factor, there must be open communication. Once there's a relationship and open communication, then trust will come. And I think at that point, you'll move away from the fluff, because as Tim indicated, when I go into work on a typical day, I go in thinking my day is going to be like this, but I am pulled in a million different ways. So when I have to have conversations with teachers, I really want to know what the bottom line is. So perhaps when you're coming to talk to the principal and you're saying, this is what I want, then you say why you want. You give them everything that they might need to make a decision, and then you come back for a follow-up. because there may be a time where the principal is actually considering your request, but then they get pulled in another direction. So you're going to have to come back with some follow-up because they may have forgotten that you even made the initial request. I will say that for my school, which is an urban school, our band program is the single most transformative activity that we have at the school. My school has about 550 students. There are nearly 100 students in the band. Our football team and basketball team, the coaches are coming to try to bargain with the band director to please stop taking our kids. But the reality is students want to be on the winning team. And at our school, the band is what is winning. So for those of you that are band teachers or music teachers in general, never underestimate how powerful it is for students to be involved in the band. Our students this past March were invited to play at Carnegie Hall. Now imagine that for a small Title I school where you have students who have never even imagined traveling to New York, who have never even imagined that in their lifetime they would actually get to board a plane, who are first, some of them are or have been first generation high school graduates. To have an experience like that, it is transformational. And so as the principal, I make it very clear about how significant our band program is. Even in our small town, when you come through our small town, one of the billboards in our city is our band. Because that is what is working at our school more than any other program. Because I'm an urban school, one of my major problems is student dropouts. Because we have a number of students who, for whatever reason, they drop out of school or won't come to school. So I have to create a culture and a climate at the school such that when students are not at school, they feel like a valuable experience has been lost. One of those experiences is the band, because if I want to get them in school and keep them there, I've got to pique their interest. I have got to give them something that ties them into the life of the school. And for us, is our band program. So again, make sure when you're speaking with this principal that you give them what you want and why you want it. When Mr. Irvin came to me and said, I want the students to go to Carnegie Hall, I want to take about 50 students and we want to ride on an airplane, I told him, you're insane, because where do you think we're going to get this kind of money? And he told me, he said, Ms. Morgan, we have to dream big. Now, as the principal, that's the kind of mindset I'm supposed to have. But the reality is I have to deal every day with the socioeconomic status of my school. And as Tim talked about it, when you're dealing with the band program, you have to look at it as socio-emotional. And so here we were planning this huge trip to Carnegie Hall, and it brought the entire city together. We had the Lions Club, the Rotary Club, fraternities, sororities, civic organizations who all came together in this small town to raise the funds necessary for those 50 students to board a plane and perform at Carnegie Hall. So it was, again, I'm using this word again, transformational for our school district, for our city. So again, don't underestimate the power of a great music program.
My question to you as an administrator is, at first I had two questions, but I just am trying to sum it on down to one. So as an administrator, as you're observing all your teachers, all right, just as you're observing your band directors, your band teachers, whether it's formal observation or even just a concert that we reached out to invite you to, what are some of the most critical components and attributes that you look for, I mean, just as you're watching us observe us, whether that's in the classroom or even as we're giving a performance on the stage?
In the classroom, I'll start with that. In the classroom, one of the key components of our evaluation system for our state, it's called Compass, but it is student engagement. Student engagement is more than all the students having an instrument and playing, but what are you doing such that the students are taking charge of the learning process? When I go in the classroom, I want to know that the lesson is not teacher directed. The lessons must be student directed. When I go into music classes at my school, you will find students in charge of the actual lesson. You will find a high use of technology. We are a one-to-one school, so every one of our students has their own Chromebook. And so when the lesson is presented, every student is using technology. So those are the things I'm looking for in the classroom. When I'm looking for performances, I'm looking for a great variety of music. Now, we have, in our band program, we have the marching band. Our marching band is called the Symphony of Soul. And and we have a symphonic band. For marching band, for the past 3 or 4 years, when our Symphony of Soul hits the stadium, normally we walk away with first place. Now, am I using a bunch of first place wins to evaluate the band teacher? No, I'm not, because realistically, we will not receive number one every time we hit the stadium. But I'm looking for increased numbers of participants in the marching band, and I'm looking for a well-comprised show that is different every year. For symphonic band, last year was our first year that we received superior ratings, and we had never gotten, since I've been principal, to the state competition. We started that last year. So certainly when I evaluate the band instructor, that's a part of the evaluation. You have taken, you're moving the program up. And that's on the marching band side as well as the symphonic side. So the band in our town, they're asked to come everywhere. You know, the local dollar store is having a grand opening. We need the band to come. The mayor wants this. We need to be in this parade, that parade. So there are a lot of conversations that we have to have about, listen, these are the ones that we can do. We can't go to everything because, again, because they are so successful, the band director and the band are pulled in many different directions. So that's another thing. We have to sit down and prioritize what can we do and not be, overbearing. Mm-hmm.
And my second question is, this really is coming from a place of concern. Well, we all know that, I guess when everyone working in a public school setting, band is looked at as an elective. Well,
Right.
Oftentimes as electives become like bottom of the totem pole,
Right.
as compared to the academics. I mean, I'm a full advocate for academics. I mean, that's the kids' number one concern. They needed to graduate. That's their future. But my area of concern is, okay, you have kids that are interested in wanting to do band, but they're conflicted all because, all right, they need to be in this intervention course and this and this and that, and then that is like placing the child in the middle, and then they're just trying to use that, okay, well, and since this is what they need, I mean, that actually like overrules them being in band. So how can like you as an administrator and working with the band teacher come to some sort of common ground to the point at which like the child is not going to feel conflicted in the middle, whereas he can just still just like get what he needs academically, but it's still as well as, of course, be able to participate in band?
Well, it has everything to do with scheduling. Fortunately, at our school, we have an 8-period day. The 8-period day allows for extra electives. Some of our courses, particularly those courses that are for students who need intervention, those courses are blocked. So for ELA and math, If you are a student that needs intervention, maybe 4 hours of your day are going to be block courses. But because we have an 8-period day, that still affords an opportunity for our students not to have to skim on their electives. Additionally, as I mentioned before, my struggle is that in order for my students not to drop out, I have to first get them to the schoolhouse. Band is what's going to get them to the schoolhouse. So it's not optional. I have to offer that as an elective that they can come, because guess what? If I don't, they won't come. So while some schools and districts look at band or as an elective that's on the bottom of the totem pole, for me it's the opposite. The band is the totem pole. And I also have to balance that with Tim talked about career and tech ed. Career and tech ed is the new prom queen. Everything is based, so much so in Louisiana, there are 2 types of diplomas. Either you're going to go the college track or you're going to have career and tech ed. So I have to offer career and tech ed electives for students or they won't graduate. But again, the same student that is forced to be on career and tech ed track because of their previous standardized test scores is the same student that might not come to school if they don't have band. So guess what? That same student is going to be in career and tech ed, and guess what else they're going to be in? Band. It's not optional. So for us, we don't look at band as the stepchild. You know, we make sure that it is a priority because that is what's going to get some of our students in the schoolhouse.
And if I can piggyback on that real quick, and then we'll get to your question. You're hearing the perspective of a master principal who I imagine has been doing this for a little while. I mean, he looks 28, so can't have been too long, but she's been doing this. You may have a principal that hasn't been doing this for very long, and that's when the power of data to get them to, they'll come to that conclusion themselves eventually, but if you can show them and jump a few years ahead to see that this, having the kids involved and having the kids enrolled will actually impact the student health, because it seems tertiary. It's not that they don't care, it's just they're told they've got to increase math scores and increase CTE because that gives more funding.
And I have to say this also, what makes my job easier is that I have a superintendent who is an uber supporter of the arts. So when I go to him and say, I really need this, or, and I'll use this as an example, I'm not a musician. When I was younger, I took piano lessons and I sing in the choir at church, but I'm not, a clinical musician. So when our new superintendent came about 2 years ago, he came on around a year prior to our band director. So when our new band director came, he indicated, I need X number of instruments. And our instruments were in dire straits. In 2016, our city was part of what they call the Great Flood of 2016. Our entire school flooded. We lost everything. And we lost everything 3 days after the new superintendent approved the band room being remodeled. So here you have this newly remodeled band room. The flood hits, destroys the whole school. Well, in the destruction, part of that destruction was all of our band instruments, which we were in dire straits anyway. So with the FEMA funding and insurance, we were afforded an opportunity to get new instruments, and our band teacher partnered with one of the local universities to help facilitate that. Well, after we get all of these new band instruments, at some point last school year, he says, Ms. Morgan, I need to get quite a bit more new instruments. And so I looked at him as if he was crazy. You have new instruments. He said, well, Ms. Morgan, that was for the marching band. I said, well, a flute is a flute is a flute. Because again, I'm not a musician. So it took him explaining to me, Ms. Morgan, no, you have instruments for marching band, and then you have a set of instruments for concert. But I don't know that. But that's part of the open communication, because when he explained that to me, and I've been a principal for 10 years, but I didn't know that. When he explained that to me, guess what? We went to the superintendent, and guess what he got? He got the set of instruments he needed for concert band. So again, I'm saying the same thing over and over again. There must be an open line of communication between the administrator and the band. And once there is a relationship, once there is communication, then they will, you will subsequently have trust. I trust him that when he comes to me with information, I'm going to say yes, because guess what? When he wins, I win. When he wins, I win, the school wins, the system wins, the city wins. It's a win-win situation.
Oh, okay. That's a lot. I was trying to remember my question now. All right. This year is my first year in this school. And it's also just so happened that the principal there just moved up to the district position. And me and the new executive principal are both new at the position. He's been at the school, but he's new to the position. I just want to know, how much do I go to him, or how much do I go to the assistant principal and just presenting my vision? In my last situation, it was always through my assistant principal, and then she reported to him, and I guess she just knew how to talk to him better. That's what she said, let me filter what you're saying. So how important is it for me to always go directly to him? I know it's a busy schedule, and how, just because it's a new relationship, what's like the first thing you want to hear from a new teacher? He heard my vision in the interview, but that's just a snippet. Like, how do you really go in there and say, hey, trust me to do this, when we both learn each other?
Right. My suggestion would be to go, because he is new, to go to the principal. If he says, you know what, the band program of fine arts is really going to be the area of the assistant principal, then at that point you go to the assistant principal. But for me, I have 2 assistant principals. But as it relates to band, because it's so large and because it involves so many different pieces, I don't leave that to an assistant. Anything dealing with band, the band director is coming straight to me. So for that principal, because he or she is new, you need to go to them, and they will let you know, I'm going to pawn this off on the assistant principal. I would rather you, go in detail with that person. But even when you go to the principal initially, I would have everything, all your concerns, what you need, why you need it, available to give to him on site, because that way he might be more apt to deal or filter through what you want and give you answers right then and there, particularly because both of you are new.
That was just a fear of mine. I did it in my last school, and he was always a cut and dry. And I want to make sure that, if I bring something, I want to feel like I'm going to work really hard. Hey, this is my drink, uniform, blah, 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 that it's going to be heard, instead of going there and like, no, go.
Right.
I want to make sure.
And all principals are different, but if I were you, I would start with the principal, because the buck begins and ends with the principal. Even when you go to the assistant principal can't make any decisions without the principal. So I would start with the principal and have everything written out, what you want, why you want it, and what's going to happen once you get it. If you give me this is what's going to happen. Even now, and I know I have a phenomenal band program at my school, but even when Mr. Irvin wants something, he comes to me, it's almost like a business proposal. He comes with everything outlined. He comes with a budget. When we went to Carnegie Hall, he had a fundraising plan. We're going to have all of this. This is how much money we anticipate we will raise. This is how many students are going. This is how much the airline tickets cost. This is, everything is laid out just like a business proposal. So when he comes to me, it's one-stop shop. I get to look at that, and I can say yay or nay, and I don't have any questions because everything is laid out.
Okay, I'm at a high school and we have a great band program. We're in the process, unfortunately, of hiring another middle school person because that guy just transferred. And any high school director knows your high school band is only going to be as good as your middle school.
Absolutely.
So, in finding a good person for the middle school, we want to walk into a great situation.
Right.
But as high school directors, we have to have that conversation with those middle school principals
Right.
about scheduling, about how we can adjust our schedule, align it to, to get over there and help work with that. What's the best way to softly suggest, how do you look at this,
Well,
look at this schedule and fix that?
well, and there's no easy way to say this. We deal with the exact same thing. Our feeder school is lackluster, okay, and I'm saying that lightly. And what happens is we're not getting the number of students that need to be fed to us, and it's for different reasons. Some of it is because of the band teacher there. Some of it is because of scheduling, because we have a number of students at the middle school level who are not afforded an opportunity to take band. So for us, because my band teacher can't go and talk to another principal without it seeming like I'm trying to tell you what to do. So we handle that on the central office level. So we talk, for us, and we're small, we talk to our superintendent and say, look, this is if we don't get this, it's going to affect the band program at the high school. And so we skip over the principal in that case and go straight to the superintendent because that is what works for us. Now, you might be in a situation where you can talk, and I'll have Mr. Irvin because we're dealing with the same thing.
Yeah, and what you got to remember is there are going to be opportunities where you can also build a great relationship with the administrators at the middle school through your administrator. Like, for instance, I happen to know my principal has a good relationship with the principal at the middle school. So there are some times where she's talked to him, and I'm able to go and talk to him about what needs going. But sometimes, when what we need done doesn't happen when we need it to get done, we do have to go to the next level. But we establish the first, conversation, initially.
Chip, in his situation, there is a fine arts coordinator. Okay?
That's excellent.
And because we're talking about a large county system,
Right.
There's a fine arts coordinator. Now, my question with fine arts coordinator-ish type person and administrators, if that fine arts coordinator goes to that middle school principal, how much traction is that going to have? Is that just going to be, well, I tried, or is that actually, could that be productive? And I realize that's without you knowing that person and,
Right.
and all that, but just speaking from a normal nuts and bolts, how effective is that going to be if that guy tries to go
It would depend on why the middle school principal is not ensuring that students are enrolled in the band. If the middle school principal is not enrolling students in middle school band because the assistant superintendent or the instructional central office person has said, listen, you have all of these students who are not meeting minimum state standards. They have to be enrolled in an intervention course, and I don't give two hoots about band. What can you do with that? But if you have a principal who that's not the case, and you have students who could actually be in band, and they're not in band because the band director is not recruiting, that's a different story. That's not acceptable. So the fine arts coordinator would be the one who would know that. Tim has detailed outlines of everything, so he's going to know what percentage of students are not in middle school band because of interventions and who's not in there simply because the band director is not recruiting. As a middle school principal, If I have students that could be in band but are not in band because of lack of recruitment, that would affect my evaluation of that middle school band director, though.
And how much influence can that fine arts coordinator have on hiring that?
And we're out of time.
Yeah.
We can talk offline
Yeah.
in just a couple minutes. So I just wanted to thank everybody so much for coming and appreciate putting this together.
No problem. All our I-65 people will, debrief tomorrow morning. We'll have a session in here in just a little while with the provost from here at Ball State. For those of you who are not I-65 who want to talk or ask more questions of Ms. Morgan or Ms. Linley as he walks to get on the plane in a little while, you can do so right across in the director's assistant area. You still have it. I-65, use the restroom real quick and come on back in. Let's give them a hand.